Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Alex Levin. We are together in the portal through YouTube for Sun and Moon Yoga Studio. Remember, you've got yoga classes here 5 days a week, 10 a.m., and you can watch them later if you've got work or other things to tend to. And then 10 a.m. on Sundays, I'm here Eastern time, so you might be joining me at a different time zone. I changed my mind a few times about what the title will be, and then when I get to this point, I forget. Today is deep listening, deep listening. I had a few other ideas, once again, inspired by a podcast. Oh, and by the way, if you're new to joining me, I'll talk a few minutes and we'll dive into a 12-minute sitting, and then we may do another practice right after that's called focusing is the name of the practice as it was named by Eugene Gendlin, but I'll get to that. It's a method of inquiry. It's a complement to our meditation practice, and a big chapter in our yoga practice, actually. Let me just get closer to see who else has chimed in. Great, Virginia, so good that you're here with us today as well. So I'm a fan of Marianne Williamson. She's an author, a progressive spiritual person. I'm not sure if that would be how she describes herself, but in any case, as you probably know, she was running for president as well. She has a podcast now, and she was interviewing this week. I just listened to it this morning, or half of it. She was interviewing Annie Lamott. I hadn't been a huge fan of Annie Lamott. Some of you may be listening and wondering what? Many people I know have loved her from her early books. Apparently she's got 19 books under her belt right now. I did love a book of hers. I've loved some excerpts, and one of the more recent books was called, I think, Help, Thanks, Wow. I think that's it. Help, Thanks, Wow. Wow. Excellent book if you haven't read it. And in this interview, which I highly recommend, Annie Lamott talks about how she came to this breaking point, caring for others, for her son, for her grandson, for her brother, and finding that she was nobody's priority. And she recognizes she likes to tend to other people. She likes to help other people, but she was finding herself resentful at not feeling like she was anyone else's priority when she was giving so much of herself. And on reflection, she found, or with some guidance that she heard from her inner self, maybe it was her. Oh, it was her sponsor, her 12-step sponsor, I believe, told her that she needed to make herself her priority. So I highly recommend listening to that podcast. And what we're doing here this morning, part of what we're doing or today together, is making ourselves our priority. And in a very special way, a very important way that's usually not given enough weight in our lives. And I think it's helpful. I have found it very helpful for teachers who have gone before me on this path to share their way of tapping into listening to this deep listening, because I find we can kind of fool ourselves and listen partially, but to really sit and listen openly, without agenda, to still the chatter of the mind and listen, which seems like a wrestling engagement. But one of the tricks is sort of to not engage in the wrestling. When you find yourself wrestling, to relax about that. And that can take a while. And that's why we practice to get better at that. In this podcast, and as I said, I'm just a little over halfway through I'm taking it out of context now, but Marianne Williamson quoted, oh, the context, I remember the context. The context is Annie Lamott talking about these past couple years, and a friend of hers that went to sit with people who had very, very different perspectives on life than herself. And I think it was about political perspectives. And that she actually sat with them, listening, truly listening to what they were saying. And Marianne replied, you have very little persuasive power with people who can feel your underlying contempt. Be and listen to our agenda or even feelings like anger or frustration are under there. And then this practice becomes an opportunity for us to then step to listen to that in ourselves. So if we notice underlying contempt, or if we notice the thought that we're so holding on to, we can then, this sitting, this silence, this spaciousness, we can lean back a little bit, lean back as if to see ourselves from the little bit larger view and say hello to that. Say hello to that, whatever that is arising. And so after we sit, we'll be working with this practice I mentioned, that will engage a little in that. In the meditation practice, basically, we're sitting, observing ourselves sit, and we're breathing. And there are lots and lots of little gimmicks and tools to help ourselves keep returning to that. And I use the ground sound breath trio mantra. And let's get into it. So first, maybe as you were listening, maybe you've set up your seat to be comfortable. And certainly if you need, you can be lying down. I've threatened to have us do walking meditation sometime soon, and sometime we will do that. Taking the time to set up the seat that supports us, the posture that supports us is worth it. It's worth taking that time, that attention. And then let's start with a bell and bowing together. It's a helpful bookend that we can open with. Some of you have been with me for quite a while, and in this trio of pointers, ground, sound, breath. And even if you haven't been with me for a while, see which one of those draws you, even if you have no idea what it's pointing to. As a support toward our sitting and our stillness. We'll start with ground today. It's where I usually start, but sometimes sound or breath are the right portal entryways for me. And as we sense to ground, we can know that we can be relaxed. This will help us listen with all our senses through the body this is the really good vehicle we have, excellent vehicle for sensing ground. Ground can be the very physical aspects, these very physical aspects of what parts of your body meet the earth body. For me, the earth body is a blanket under my pelvis, the carpet under that, and my feet and side legs touching. And in this listening, this may seem a little bit strange, but what if we could listen in such a way where we're aware of our own body sensations receiving ground and gravity, but we're also aware of the qualities of ground. It's almost as if when we're truly listening, we can sense what this other, what ground is experiencing. So in the body, we might be feeling a certain kind of heaviness and density through the left and right sits bones of the pelvis. Even if you're lying down, I can sense the boniness of my feet against the textured fibers of carpet. Firm carpet, but textured, a certain softness in these fibers. And I feel this, even as we're in ground, it overlaps with the code word sound for me right now. So this listening, deep listening, is happening through skin and nervous system, as well as my ears, my inner seeing, and even smell, aroma, and taste. It may not feel as online, but just as I said those words, you may have opened to how those are available for you. And sound, as I usually report in this space, I'm hearing little sounds from the sleeping dog nearby. These weeks, the birds singing outside has been prominent. If we follow sound, in any instant, the movement of sound as it appears to be coming to us, we might relax into that smooth transition of outer to inner, inner to outer. And same with breath. You can add the breath piece here. Following with light, gentle attention, how it effortlessly, without any need for us to orchestrate, moves from outer to in, from inner to out. Very lightly, sensing our own attention prior to the objects of the attention. Lightly beginning to let go of this idea of someone who is attending. Just leaning toward that bigger, spacious view as if from awareness. As if from boundless, infinite awareness. From there, listening, acknowledging, welcoming whatever aspect of yourself and thought and feeling and emotion and sensation, whatever comes. to close the meditation practice together, bring our left and right palms together in front of the heart. So simple and so powerful in our ability to discern qualities, left and right. Together at the midline, they meet, bowing our head to these hands, to this heart, and sensing the kind of quality that this gesture speaks for you. Does it speak thank you? Does it speak, I wish this search for peace for all beings? And before we completely finish our time together, let's just take a couple moments toward this focusing practice. Your eyes can stay closed, and you could keep the same seat, or you can change your position to just be comfortable. And just see, in meditation, often various qualities arise, various messages come from our mind or our body or our heart. And see now if there's any of, or if any of these are arising. Not today, but yesterday for me, a lot of discomfort was arising from the neck, from the head. So yours might be like that, a physical one. We're doing this changed state of mind. It's not the usual slower, quieter, different wavelength. We're here to see what needs, what wants or needs my attention. And perhaps we can relax into trusting our own experience a bit more. Practice that. And so, especially feeling perhaps and listening to the deep spaces of the body, the deep feeling spaces of the deep belly, upper belly, heart, shoulders, collarbones, throat area. Could be the jaw, but it really could be anywhere. And it could be more that a mental, psychological, or emotional story has got you, and I'm motioning that sometimes that feels like it's out here. It's not even, it's kind of at the head, around the head area. And if one of those is happening for you, the first step is just to acknowledge. And this is where the slowing down is so important. Usually we jump into controlling, manipulating, helping, fixing. Just acknowledge that there's this presence that's observing and welcoming, or at least seeing, perhaps not able to welcome. And we can then, if that comes, something like, I'm not able to welcome, could I hold that with that, attending that awareness, presence? And even as I said that, I could feel this wrench like in my belly. Like, I don't want to welcome that. So welcome the not wanting to welcome. And what reaction comes then? And whatever is where you are now, what you're welcoming, what you're acknowledging, listen, feel, ask for how would it be best to be with this energy? Would it be best to imagine they are sitting on the other side of the room? Or would it be right to almost invite it into your heart space or into your care? How can we be in the relationship and yet be at ease in this moment? And leave plenty of space. I forgot to mention an important part of this is don't rush the answers. Like when you feel the inquiry, just listen, immerse into the pause. For more than just a few seconds. For as much perhaps as 20, 30, 40 seconds. And finally, and this is a very quick taste of this practice, let's finally just see what that entity may have, that message, that quality may have to say or express, if anything. It may not want to divulge at this time. It may call for your body to gesture in a certain way. My body seems to be calling for my hands to be put on the belly, on the side of the belly. And from this encounter, what we can commit to is to repeat this, to continue this relationship, if that's your desire. This is a sense of making ourselves our own priority. And so I thank you for your listening presence. I thank my own inner self for listening presence. And again, for once again quoting Annie Lamott, making ourselves our priority. And so the deep listening, one last comment about that is that the deep listening takes time. Our usual as I'm coming out now, and you might consciously see where I'm talking a little faster. I've moved up in the video. I'm a different state of mind here, and we're usually in a quick, like we listen, and it's usually a 2, 3, 4 seconds that is is a gap we leave for an answer. And you could play with that for your homework too. Allow yourself to listen when you notice. It takes a while to get used to doing this, but if you can listen for a little longer, a little restraint of self to, okay, this is not, I don't know, not liking what I hear, or noticing yourself in the same reaction, and see if we can be that listening presence for ourselves, for another, for anything that we're relating to. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'll be here again next week with you. And do check our sunandmoonstudio.com website for other events. Sending love.